Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to this webinar on investing in education, skills, and research collaboration for climate action. This webinar is being organized by the Education Sector Group of the Asian Development Bank as part of our ongoing Resilience Learning Month. My name is Orgo Senaroy, and I work as a climate change adaptation specialist at the Asian Development Bank, and very happy to be today's moderator. This Resilience Learning Month is a one-month event that we organize every year to discuss issues related to climate change that our developing member countries are facing, and to hear about solutions from countries, partners, and other organizations on how climate actions can be undertaken in our developing member countries. Today's webinar, looking at education, skills, and research collaboration, is particularly important. This is because, as we all have seen, a couple of months back, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change released its first working group report, the sixth assessment report. And the report talks about two things very clearly. Firstly, limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade, as agreed in Paris Agreement, by the end of this century is still within reach, but it's only possible if transformational changes are undertaken in countries. Transformational changes that lead to better quality jobs, health benefits, and livelihoods. And secondly, the report is also very clear that despite of stringent climate mitigation efforts, a lot of warming is already baked in our climate systems, which means, unfortunately, in the coming decades, we will continue to face extreme weather events and its devastating impacts, thereby underscoring the importance of investing in resilience. And education as a sector is absolutely critical for both this low carbon transition as well as building resilience. Formal and informal education provide opportunities to build awareness of communities and our society, to understand risk, to understand climate impacts, and take actions through increased knowledge, skills, attitudes, etc. Similarly, skill development is absolutely critical to transit towards low carbon economy and industries, as well as to green our jobs. And last but not least, the research collaboration between research organizations and policymakers, between research organizations in the private sector, and most importantly, research organizations and local communities who are facing the lived experiences of climate impact, is absolutely critical to inform global policy decisions. These actions are accordingly highlighted in the outcome document of the recently concluded COP26, where the Glasgow Climate Pact recognizes the importance of best available science for effective climate action and policymaking, the importance of technology transfer and the capacities and partnerships and collaborations required for such transfers, and the need for creation of decent job and quality workspace is mentioned in the outcome document. In this context, we are very delighted to organize this webinar today and have with us an esteemed range of panelists from various organizations who are working at this cross-section of climate actions and education. We look forward to hearing today from our panelists about their experiences on how they are implementing climate actions in the education sector, what are some of the issues that they are facing, and how can we collectively try to address those issues and help countries in the region step up climate actions. I have the privilege to introduce the panelists today. Our first panelist is Ms. Viveke Jensen, who's a Director for Division for Peace and Sustainable Development at UNESCO. Thank you for joining us. Second panelist is Mr. Shiju Varghese, who is the president and country head of the Tata Consultancy Services in the Philippines. Thank you, Shiju, for joining us. Our third panelist is Dr. Dukwu Jun, or better known as DJ, who is the Director, Division for Climate Technology Corporation at the Green Technology Center in Korea. Thank you, Dr. Jun, for joining us. And last but not the least, our fourth panelist is Ms. Lerwin Liu, who is the Managing Director of Circular Economy Accelerator and Founding Director of STEAM Platform, KX Innovation Center in Bangkok. Thank you, Lerwin, for joining us. So in our first round of discussion, maybe what I'm going to do is start with each of our panelists and request you to briefly speak in about 5-6 minutes the work that you're doing in the context of climate and education. So if we can start with you, Veke, from UNESCO's perspective, of course, this Education for Sustainable Development for 2030 has identified climate as a key priority. So I'd be keen to hear from you the approaches that UNESCO is undertaking to embed sustainability and climate action in the education system.
Thank you. Thank you so much, moderator, and good afternoon in Manila from Paris, where it's still quite early morning and cold and dark and rainy. Thank you so much for inviting UNESCO to take part in this webinar. We really appreciate the opportunity to present UNESCO's work on climate education. Now, a couple of years ago, UNESCO undertook quite a big survey, the world in 2030, and the respondents to this survey identified climate change and biodiversity as the biggest challenges of our times. And our education came out on top of the list as crucial solution to these challenges. So it's against this backdrop also that UNESCO is really stepping up our action on climate education within the broader framework of education for sustainable development that we have been working on for quite a number of years. Now, climate change, especially last month and this month, may be in the headlines every day across the world, but it is really not sufficiently integrated in education. At the recent COP26, we presented a brochure or a publication entitled Getting Every School Climate Ready, which is a publication that looks at how climate education is integrated in national curricula and policy documents across 100 member states of UNESCO, and also looking at how teachers, and we had respondents from about 144 countries, they think about climate education. Now, the findings are not so positive because climate change are not mentioned in half of the curricular documents across those 100 countries that we examined. And when it was mentioned, the depth was minimal. It also found, we also found in the survey we did that only 40% of the teachers surveyed, they were confident about talking about climate change. And so I think that really the figures speak for themselves. There is a huge need for a more systematic approach to promote ecological transition in education and to prepare learners and teachers, learners of all ages, to address current and future environmental and climate change challenges. So what is UNESCO doing? So about 2 years ago in 2019 at our general conference, our member states adopted a new global framework to strengthen education's ability to address sustainability issues, including climate change, for the next 20 years. And it's called the Education ESD Framework for 2030. And the goal of this is really to raise awareness, knowledge, and action for green transition. UNESCO is the UN lead agency for ESD, and UNESCO's role in promoting ESD is quite comprehensive. And as I said earlier, it's something we've been working on for the past almost 20 years. And it ranges, our action ranges from supporting member states on climate education, developing guidance documents and encouraging good practices in schools, to advocating at global level for climate education, For instance, we had a big event at the COP26 organized with the host UK and the co-host Italy of the conference. So maybe of particular interest to today's participants and discussion, UNESCO's work on greening technical and vocational education and training, where we are really looking at every level of education and the transition to green societies. And this transition can also create jobs, as you know. So if youth are to gain skills for green jobs, Tibet has to transform radically. Our strategy supports countries to green their Tibet policies, but also in providing training for teachers and educators at Tibet institution, and also encourages innovative projects that nurture green skills. So this is really paving the way for facilitating the transition to green economies and also sustainable societies. Just 2021 has been really a crucial year when it comes to climate education. You know, I think everyone realizes how important it is to act now in order to save the planet. So in May this year, we organized the World Conference on Education for Sustainable Development, where we have more than 70 education ministers participating and close to 3,000 education and environmental stakeholders committing to take concrete steps to transform learning for the survival of our planet by adopting what we call the Berlin Declaration on Education for Sustainable Development. And the participants also committed to ensure that climate action is a core curriculum component in all education systems. And this was very much echoed in the pre-COP event in Milan in October, where we had also events having ministers of education and youth in particular having a discussion about what climate change education really ideally should look like. And then that takes us to Glasgow in November, where we, as I said, tried together with UK and Italy, the two hosts of the conference, to bring together a number of ministers of education, but also ministers of environment, to really provide a platform to them to have a conversation about how they can work together at the country level and really strengthen the work on climate education, and making sure that what is being done in the education system really both get the support from the environment, climate change minister side, but also responds to the demands from their side and vice versa. And finally, so we plan to take this work forward together with in COP27 with the host country Egypt, where the conversation around mainstreaming education into climate change discussions will continue. So maybe just to say that this is a very decisive moment to address this common crisis that really affects everyone across the world, and the massive transformation in our behaviors, our agency, our economies, and our systems are absolutely crucial, and education must be placed at the forefront of this transformation. And when we say education, it's really all levels of education, from early childhood all the way up to university, TVET, but also adult learning and non-formal education. So let me just maybe end my 6 minutes here by say to you, moderator, and to ADB, really thank you so much for organizing this webinar and inviting us to take part in it. And we very much look forward to continued dialogue with you, and hopefully also to working together on these issues. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca, for highlighting these issues. And really, it was interesting to understand that the gaps in both the education's curriculum, but also capacity within teachers, which is absolutely critical, and the importance of greening skills and TVET curriculum and policies. But also very encouraging to see that the political momentum that, as you mentioned, 2021 has gained and hopefully will be continued moving forward as we go towards COP27 and beyond, which will help translate these commitments into actual actions on ground. So thank you for really setting the scene. I'll come back to you later again. I do have a question on behavioral attitude and agency for you at the last. But maybe moving on to our next speaker, I will invite now Mr. Shiju Varghese from TCS to explain to us, describe to us the work that TCS is doing in the context of sustainability in education. We are aware that you recently launched the TCS Sustainathon ASEAN 2021. So how was the experience of that? And what do you think is a need to reimagine and introduce innovation in education? Over to you, Shiju.
Thank you, Argo. And let me quote from what Vivek said, that education is crucial for solutions or coming up with solutions to challenges that we are facing today. And that's so apt, right? It says the segue for what I will share briefly about what we are doing as an organization, the corporate world. See, without a debate, COVID-19 and this pandemic has disrupted the children's learning and well-being, and it's unquestionable. Even before the pandemic, as per the reports that I've read, the education or the progress in education that we had to make as collectively at the global level was anyway slow, really to meet up with the SDG goals that were set forth. Now, every 2 in 3 students are still affected by either full or partial school closures. To recover from this losses, which this pandemic onslaught has brought onto us, they require special efforts. And that's something which as a corporate we recognize. Now, as per reports, 65% of the government in low and middle income countries and also about close to 35% in the upper income countries have reduced the funding towards education at the onset of this pandemic. It is very disturbing when you read such reports, right? And it's projected that about 1 million plus children are going to fall below the proficiency of reading, taking the total about 580 million odd in this year. That, those numbers are staggering, and that pretty much wipes out the progress that we had probably made collectively over the last decade or so. Now, what is important to note when I call out these numbers are, and that's where it drew my attention, was, see, out those children who are falling behind, almost 2/3 of that live in Central and Southern Asia and Southeast Asian countries. Right? As per the ASEAN report, about 152 million children are affected because of school closure only in this region. 1.2 girls students have dropped out of school. 27% of the students are still without online learning access. So, see, these numbers are staggering, and continuing education and training are key to develop a future workforce, essentially, which is resilient to economic shock and adaptable to technological change. Reason I say so is because this is probably not the last pandemic that the world will face. There may be more. And when that happens, there is an economic shock that the world has to resist. So it is important that we continue our efforts in terms of education and training our workforce and our students who will become the future workforce for us. Digital technologies have paved ways and proved useful with regards to, for example, the pandemic preparedness, responses, and everything that you see in the news today, right? It can also be used to build resiliency in the workforce, right? Moving the digitization agenda forward will be critical in creating more robust and resilient societies, in our view. However, we need to keep in mind the digital divide that has caused during this time. There are probably about billions of people who have limited access to digital technologies as well. So that's also an area which needs to be addressed at some point in time. Now, when remote learning started, during the first wave and now we are in the second wave, it did not serve all countries and population uniformly. The unaffordability of internet services, the lack of digital skills are still critical barrier to opportunity and resiliency. Now at TCS, as an organization, we do believe in building a future through influencing and empowering our youth. True to that belief, we launched initially the Go IT program that basically introduced students across Philippines region. We started with Cordillera Administrative Region, and then we expanded it to Western Visayas. And even this is a program that we run globally, wherein they are introduced to STEM, computer science, design thinking, and innovation at their curriculum. And we have our volunteers, our subject matter experts and technology experts who volunteer, and they introduce courses and modules. As per those modules, we introduce those courses to various schools and students. Now, we wanted to launch a similar program for sustainability to inspire youth to play an active role in advocating for a more sustainable world. Now, we conceptualized TCS Sustainathon as an ideathon focused on sustainability. That's why we call it that way. The idea was to put technology and innovation at the center of solving real-world sustainability issues, aligned also with the UN SDGs. See, while the key result area is to have more and more students participate in the competition, we see that TCS Sustainathon not as an event in itself, but we see it as a movement that will create awareness around sustainability among students and inspire them to really play an active role. So TCS Sustainathon was first launched actually in Singapore. Last year we launched it, and it was with an aim to scale it up to the ASEAN countries in this year and year forward, focusing on the theme reimagining education. The ASEAN edition, which we launched, is currently running across Malaysia, Philippines, and Singapore. Now, you may ask why reimagining education? Because this, our belief is that the socio-economic well-being of society is closely hinged on the literacy and education level of our people and of our youth and our students, our children. The necessity to reimagine education was, I would say, there even before the pandemic started. But the pandemic has just accelerated the need. So it's a good sign in that sense. So in the industry 4.0 world, the digital technologies are rapidly reshaping the way we live, we work, we interact, we meet with people. Take this webinar in itself, right? So this requires looking at how we can leverage technology and innovation to help learners to be more inclusive and quality education for all. We are happy actually to see some game changers in this field, who have come forward, right? Really rethinking, reinventing, and coming up with their own learning experiences. See, in this competition, what we are essentially doing is we are exposing students to the real life education issues and challenges, and we are influencing them to come up with solutions which is much more sustainable within the education system and also at the community at large. Right now, in doing so, we are asking and focusing them to leverage technology at the center of it, and that's where our role comes in place. What we do is we enable them, we empower them by giving them guidances to our subject matter experts. We give them the technology levers that we have, tools that we have, platforms that we have, so that they are able to come up with the ideas and solutions, and those viable solutions are then brought up in the marketplace, really to be used across. It's good, the response, is really good. I've seen about 280 plus registrations within Philippines that we have received, 230 plus challenge applications we have received, a significant number of solution proposals that's been submitted so far. The final is sometime later in December. And then we are looking at the top finalists from Philippines to compete with Singapore and Malaysian students to really come up with the finalists across this region. And then we will help them in terms of making their solutions viable in the marketplace, help them in terms of getting them patented as well if they are really viable for the same thing. And that's how we play the role, Vibha. Over to you, Alex.
Thanks a lot, Shiju. I mean, first of all, for highlighting the devastating impacts that the education sector has faced in the current pandemic and how actually it has got much more longer term impacts. and making a very strong case that it's absolutely essential for us to continue education and training, because it is a resilient solutions to deal with all kinds of future shocks, which of course we know we will face, specifically in the context of climate moving forward. Also for highlighting the importance of digital technology, the role that can play, but recognizing that that role has to ensure that no one is being left behind. And lastly, of course, talking about the Sustainathon, which I think is extremely innovative concept, and as you rightly said, to create the kind of movement needed in terms of creating sustainability through digital technology. So thank you so much for sharing with us. With that, I'm going to move to our third speaker, to Kuo Jun, who's from the Green Technology Center. DJ, of course, the Green Technology Center has been playing a critical role. If you can share with us how you have been promoting research partnership for green technologies in Korea, but also in other developing countries in the region. I know you have a presentation. If you can kindly stick to 5 to 6 minutes, that'll be great. Thank you so much. Over to you, DJ.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Roy, for your kind introduction. Hello, I'm Kuo Jun at the GTC. Today, I will talk about our experience to promote research partnerships with the green technologies and the lesson I learned. And then I will state the key schemes to link human capital investment to green transition. So it is already very well recognized that technology innovation is critical for securing carbon neutrality and green transition in our society and economy. But there is always a great gap between scientific performance and its economic value formulation. We call this innovation gap death valley. But as a death valley, so in green sector, this death valley is more serious since much values of green technology have been under-evaluated. Their positive impacts on environmental protection, climate response, and social inclusivity are not well counted and exchanged in commercial values. This undermines green values in the market, has made the private sector have less interest in investment for green technology. There will be several ways to overcome this, the death valley, and you might conceive an idea to incubate the initiative or platform to encourage the innovation sharing partnerships as a bridge to connect these two divides. In this platform, several stakeholders who have different capacity may share their resources, risk, and benefits. So this approach may facilitate the inclusion of the climate innovation in our economy and society. From this inclusive idea, my agency GTC and BRIN in Indonesia launched a Green Technology Partnership Initiative 2 years ago. TTPI has the function of TA, RD&D, which is research, development, and demonstration, information service, and capacity building programs. We designed this function to be highly integrated, and also we have promoted various partnerships across scientific groups, private companies, NGOs, local governments, and international institutions. This approach is to help us incubate many green solutions with the innovative technologies such as smart farming, waste to energy, smart water quality monitoring, and so on. But I have learned several major things from GTPI to enhance the green transition with research partnership. First, technology innovation should be coming together with innovation in other areas, such as social innovation, policy innovation, business model innovation, and financing innovation. Second, the capacity building program should be more than having just workshops, guidelines, and invitation training program. We need a more systematic education system to link the human capital investment to the value creation system. In this educational system, more qualified human capitals enter society, economic system, and they create more green values in their economy. And some of the values can be returned to the green human capital investment. This is circular green value creation mechanism is highly essential to green transition, which requires us to make fortify human capitals and their innovation capacities very soon. Korea governments and private sectors recognize the importance of this value-creating education system. Korea's New Deal plan that has 3 pillars: Digital New Deal, Green New Deal, and Human New Deal, also emphasizes this approach. We will look to 3 educational schemes relevant to these policies. First, Korea will promote the digitalization of education infrastructure and development of digital content. This scheme utilizes open technology to help anyone have better access to quality content and learning experience, and thus contribute to social inclusivity. Private sector, local government, and educational sectors are actively advancing and transforming the education system as well. The last article shows the very emerging trend in Korea that high-tech firms and talented universities are making agreements to operate the professional research education programs together. The private firms like Samsung, LG they will provide the financial support, expert consultations, and joint research to the universities, and return secure high-quality human capital from the universities. Local governments, where gray industry is being phased out, are moving proactively to set up innovation cluster in their region as well. They collect the private investment and central government subsidy to build the green techno parks that connect the research and commercialization and export training. Actually, the essence of green transition is to make internalization of green values in our society and economy. Carbon pricing, ESG investment, and green subsidy are effective tools for this, of course. But more powerful and fundamental tool is the education. Korean Ministry of the Education is making green smart schools where the young generation can experience the social and environmental values of nature and role of the green technologies. Moreover, these schools will design specific climate action program with the local communities to encourage the students to encounter the green values in their class and society. This slide is about the key schemes to encourage the students that have green intelligence and action, but I will leave this last slide for this presentation. So hope that someone may ask this part for me later. All right, thank you.
Thank you so much, DJ, for highlighting the concept of Death Valley and how resource sharing, risk sharing, and value sharing can help overcome such issues. Also for highlighting the importance of value creating education system and the great work that is happening in Korea. I found it very exciting when he talked about no education is leading to no innovation, and that leads to no growth essentially. And I think that's absolutely critical over here. So thanks for sharing your thoughts. With that, I'm going to move to our 4th speaker, Lervin Liu. And Lervin, I'm going to request you to share your experiences and achievements in setting up the STEAM platform, and what is the STEAM platform is all about, and what are some of the insights from learning partnerships for the circular economy in that context. I do understand you have a presentation. If you can stick to 5 to 6 minutes, that'd be great. Thank you. Over to you, Lervin.
Hi, thank you. Can I ask Joey to play a short video to start? Thank you.
Communicate. your science effectively is a key for your success. Like many of you, I did not grow up speaking English, so I believe practicing and learn by doing are very important. I am here to help. Look forward to working with all of you.
Over the last 25 years of my career, I have learned the power of strategic communication that could add value to research, business, and saving the planet and helping improving the life of people. We have built the STEAM platform together with students in Thailand. To inspire more young people like you to join our journey in learning sustainability. Come join us in our strategic communication program. Together, we will transform the world towards sustainability. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I hope that's a good introduction, you guys. Let's see. I will show portions. I need to learn how to share my screen. Share. And how do I do play slideshow? Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay. I don't do this in the presenter view often, so great. So hello everyone. It's evening here in Australia. Actually, I'm based in Bangkok, but I'm back home in Australia this month. So good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everyone. Hope you got a good overview of what STEAM platform is about. But I just wanted to share a few, sort of core of our framework and a few practices. I know I only have a few minutes, so that's a challenge. So I think I'll skip this, and we know that here we need knowledge, we need partnership, we need entrepreneurship to drive change, to solve problems, to better prepare the developing world, especially to cope with the climate crisis. And in STEAM platform, we focus on youth leadership. Our STEAM platform has 3 pillars: knowledge convergence, focus on knowledge, skills and mindset. The skills really, like you saw just now, is on strategic communication skills and life cycle thinking mindset, which is very critical for circular economy practice and transition. And lastly, of course, very importantly, entrepreneurship practices for SDG, the Sustainable Development Goals. And in here, we focus on circular economy and what we call a sustainable circular economy. In Thailand, they call BCG, Bio-Circular Green Economy. So there are different names for it, but I just stick to circular economy. In our platform, we combine Industry 4.0 and circular economy, because this is really what's really important right now. A lot of institutions, especially in higher education, we have a lot of education programs and research activities related to advanced robotics, digital technology, and AI, blockchain, etc. And how we could apply these cutting edge, emerging advanced technology to help transitioning and accelerating towards circular economy is what we are trying to achieve in our platform, to train the next generation workforce to prepare for that future. Now, let's just keep going. How do I go forward? Okay, yeah. So our methodology, like I mentioned earlier, we focus on knowledge, we have the skills, we have the entrepreneurship, and we adopt data-driven approach in managing our content and trainees. just keep, let's see how we move forward. Okay, there we go. Now, just an example of how we train our trainees on circular economy. Let's take plastic circularity as an example. We follow the life cycle thinking mindset. So we start with extraction of natural resources, explaining how that is done, and how these natural resources getting processed and into production. Then plastic gets to be distributed and how it's being consumed. And after end of consumption, how the waste is being managed. And so obviously the waste management is really critical for, especially for a developing country, how it needs to be sorted, collected effectively, efficiently, and how it can be recycled and recover in different ways, including recovery of energy, recovery, natural resource recovery, if it is bioplastic, through composting and biocompostable materials. And if it can be reused, and how we could do clean, reuse, and repair, and to keep the packaging in circularity, the plastic packaging, for example. So we also show how bioplastic can be produced from extraction of natural resources like agriculture, through agricultural production, and again follow the same loop. Let's see how I keep going. Now, we have built the institution program. We built a general education module. We call it, it's called Technology and Innovation for Sustainability, where we cover circular economy and Industry 4.0. Now here, I don't know how I can do my laser pointer. I don't know how I do that. No, I can't do that. Okay. I don't know if you can see my cursor. So we cover all the knowledge around circular economy, from life cycle thinking, life cycle assessment, waste management, supply chain, and different sectors from food and agriculture, material, energy, to eco-design. And we also cover Industry 4.0, from advanced robotics to AI to digital factory and data analytics. And in the mindset part, we invite our UN colleague to share with us the SDG, details of SDGs. We train our students how to practice critical thinking and communication and leadership. And finally, on the entrepreneurship side, we train our students how to conduct supply chain management for sustainability and help them design business models for their ideas, and how to fulfill practice circular economy and the basic principle of circular economy and sustainability, following these principles to design the business model and how their solution can impact SDGs. Let's see, I think I run out of time. Just you have to cut me when I run out of my time. And let me just maybe jump through the end. I wanted to, since I ran out of time, I think you can have those slides. Now, when we try, I just want to cover quickly this slide. When we train our students how to conduct value chain analysis on circular economy, we follow what I just said earlier, the life cycle of our materials, and we help them conduct capability and innovation capability assessment, technology and innovation capability assessment, and conduct comparative and competitive analysis. And we show them how to do market research and market opportunity assessment. And finally, here, we at the end, we train our students to create a pitch deck for pitching their ideas to investors and funding agencies, and covering these aspects: why, the problem statement, what it is that the problem you want to solve and how you want to solve it, the impact of your solution, and how it can address sustainability issues. And I just want to go very quickly to the technology. Now, one of the flagship of our program is focusing on technology, because it's STEM. So we always talk about technology. We look at the role of enabling technology in circular economy transition, covering digital technology, physical technology, and biotechnology, which I mentioned earlier. And biotechnology in particular, we look at the biorefinery, and like I said earlier, BCG in Thailand is a key focus for the government, and the bioeconomy part is critical. So there's in our university, for example, there's a platform for biorefinery. This is how we train our students how to transition from the current refinery to the biorefinery. And of course, across all these technologies, we'll look at how we conduct life cycle assessment and do material flow analysis. And we create a lot of content. We recently, well, actually a year ago, we published the first textbook called An Introduction to Circular Economy, where the module that I mentioned has a full chapter included in this book. And this book was fortunately awarded the China New Development Award by Springer Nature recently in October. And our next step, I'd like to invite you to join us to create a global partnership where we could, oh, sorry, this is a practice of my video training. Our global circular economy knowledge platform, where we'd like to invite you to join us to feature your leading practices from all over the world, to allow practitioners who would like to practice circular economy. It's like a handbook, it's like a manual for entrepreneurs to practice circular economy, not only for businesses, but for policymakers, for designers, industry, SMEs, large corporations, and startups. So we will launch this platform in end of January. It's a live platform. We'll start creating content. We already have content now. We're going to expand that, and we need partnership to allow these platforms to be allowed to share with everyone around the world. So thank you for your attention, and please visit our website and stay tuned to our YouTube channel. Subscribe to our channel. We have a lot of videos, a lot of content for you to share and learn and partner with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Levin, so much for introducing the STEAM platform, focusing on youth leadership and the concept of bringing knowledge, skills, mindset, and entrepreneurship together. It does sound very exciting. So thanks a lot for sharing with us. With this, I'm going to now move to the second segment of our session, which is basically a moderated discussion with the panelists. Meanwhile, I am going to request all participants to please keep your questions ready. We will soon open up the sessions for question and answer. In this session, maybe let me start with DJ. You did talk a lot about the great work that's happening in Korea and the role that your institution is playing. If you can just explain a little bit about how do you see universities and research institutes can contribute to building capacities in low carbon and resilience, and what are some of the lessons of engaging with universities that we can convey to other developing countries in the region?
Okay, thank you for your great question. Of course, the research institution has a lot of the roles to contribute into the green transition. They can supply green solution, green technology, and human capitals, and also so they can provide several things to our society. But recently, what I look to their important role is their very crossover experiment capacity. As I told you, right now we are experiencing green transition requires holistic innovation, not only technology innovation. For example, if we want to have energy transition, the energy efficient technology cannot solve this issue. You need the social innovation, behavior change, also institutional setup, and the new policy as well. It's very complex right now. The second is green transition is very urgent. So far, transition from technical innovation to the market formulation takes a very long time. But right now, green transition is very urgent, so they don't wait for us to such a long time. So we have to reduce the failure opportunity as we can. How we can do that? It's very complex, right? So we need to have more integrated holistic innovation, and we have to shorten the innovation transition. So what I'm thinking is maybe probably we should have like some solution developed by research groups in interdisciplinary approach. So as you know, university has a lot of majors, and then they can combine together, and they're really happy with it. And then they can also work with your local society, local government as well. They have the impact on that. So we can support them to incubate a new solution with the holistic approach, and then they can maybe test it, experiment, not only technology things, but also policy things as well. They can experiment in the local. And the university also has the capacity to evaluate the performance and define the critical factors for it. And then they can interpret it, and then they can communicate with global leaders, global scientists, and also researchers, so that they can have the feedback freely. And then after this testing, so their experiments in their local, so they can scale up and further. So if you think just the research groups as like a research or the education, I think because right now research institution can have the way more roles for green transition in these times.
Thank you, DJ. I think that's absolutely critical. You talked about the importance of the role the universities and research organizations can play in really promoting the holistic transition beyond just the technology bit of it, bringing in the multidisciplinary solution, which is absolutely critical. And of course, the most important is testing local solutions. I think that's also very, very critical. If I can move to Lervin, from in your context, you did mention about the learning program on circular economy that you guys have developed. Could you share what are some of the leading opportunities for education and training institutions to embody such learning programs?
Now, for circular economy learning program, right now there are not many of this established circular economy learning program available. There are programs, of course, on waste management, environmental engineering, but circular economy is really a multidisciplinary, multi-stakeholder topic or issue. So that's why we work with different stakeholders. We work with different, in the university context, for example, we work with different departments to create our program. For example, during our GEM module, we engage our faculty members from different disciplines, from faculty of engineering, faculty of science, the management, the Graduate School of Management and Innovation, and different expertise that's why we're called convergence, right? So different expertise, different specialists to come and give lectures, technical, topical lectures to our students, so they get the exposure. When they come to our module, since it's a general education module, we have students coming from different faculties, and they select our module, and they get to expose, if they are from, say, faculty of architecture and design, they don't necessarily have the engineering background, but then they learn about advanced robotics. They will learn about how data can help with their design, for example. So this is really critical for established institution to adopt that multidisciplinary mindset, to be inclusive within their institution and even cross the institution to deliver content to our students. I think it's important for the faculty, the trainers, to have that mindset to start with, right? And then engage the students also to really from day one to have that multidisciplinary, very open-minded way of looking at the issue, so that they can have the knowledge and the readiness in the mind and the skills, and then practice entrepreneurship later on. So when we train entrepreneurship, also we train them with the STEM knowledge. Often we look at a lot of entrepreneurship program somehow decouple the tech and entrepreneurship. So what we do is we train our engineers to be entrepreneurs. Then we train our management students with knowledge, with technology. So this is how, and then we group them. We bring them together into a group to do projects together. So that's how they can peer-to-peer. So our approach also very peer-to-peer. So a peer-to-peer, we find it very powerful. We elaborated this in our chapter in the book is how we could, the power of peer-to-peer, especially in Thailand, because we did our pilot in Thailand. It's especially people like me, I'm a foreigner there. And I think when I have my STEAM platforms interns, their students, to be their mentor for the students. And it's so much more effective than me as an much older person, their mother's age, to tell them what to do. So there's a lot of learning for us as well. We're all here learning and work out the best way to move forward.
Great, thank you. I think this question of multidisciplinary approach is, of course, coming up as an important solution. We heard from you also now, but you also talked about the importance of building capacity of the trainers themselves. And this goes back to what Vivek was saying earlier on, that teachers itself, they don't have the necessary capacity or the understanding to train the students. And of course, thanks for highlighting the importance of peer-to-peer learning, because it is absolutely critical, at least when it comes to climate actions. So if I can move to Shiju, of course, this digital and sustainability goes hand in hand. But from your perspective, what kind of new skills and talent you think are needed to support cities and governments to really bring these solutions together?
Yeah, so thanks for asking that, Argo. And see, let me share what I feel from an IT perspective, right? And then I'll give you a different perspective as well, as we see it. See, over the next 5 years, more than 150 million tech jobs are expected to emerge in the areas such as software development, cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and you would have heard all these terms in the recent past. Now, because of this, supporting the global economic development lies in empowering the workforce with the skills they need, not only to survive, but also be successful in the next decade of digital economy. See, the fourth industry revolution has made the need for reskilling and upskilling a greater imperative than ever before, right? And I heard about teaching the teachers, right? Ignite My Future is one of the programs that ECH launched, which is essentially, bringing in the modules which helps the teachers influence and induct the digital solutions in their curriculum itself. The WEF, one of the WEF report that that suggests that the increasing adoption of utilization of digital technologies, right, in industries are expected to redefine the jobs and skill as soon as 2025. Which is like 2 or 3 years from now, and it's not far off, right? So there is a McKinsey report which suggests that 53% of the companies consider reskilling their current workforce, while 20% are considering, additional talent which they want to bring in. 20% are actually redeploying their existing talent to newer roles and different roles to suit their skills. And there are about 43% of companies who are saying that they will experience the skill gap to cater to current need in the next 2 to 3 years, while there are already 44% who are already claiming that experience the skills gap as of now, right? While there are mechanisms in the country's education system to incorporate curriculum changes to meet the industry need, the speed at which this update takes place is a bit restricted, which is detrimental in the landscape of rapidly evolving technologies and associated skill set, right? Having said, it is crucial to consider that the demands of the future economy will go beyond proficiency in digital skills and technical skills. And I'll tell you why I say so. See, more than any other particular skill, especially since you mentioned about government, supporting the governments and the cities, right? Government sectors. the reason why I say so is the workforce should embrace the learning skill at this time, right? There should be a focus in teaching employees to learn and learn fast. Just because, what we experience is the digital technology and the new things that's coming into the marketplace, the same thing getting done from different technology tools, etc. It's rapidly changing. Now, as per one of the survey, the government talent developers themselves, they are focusing on building the skills of adaptability and resilience among their employees. Now, if you actually think about it, this is a nice shift from what 3-4 years ago, that if you would think about it, there will be focus on leadership skill development and digital skill development and so on and so forth. So from there, this is a very, very good shift, if I would say, and there's a rapid shift that's going on. There's few more things which can possibly enable and influence. And when I think about the future need of the skills, is beyond this technological skills that is there, it is important that we know there's somewhere the system thinking competencies is developed, because anticipatory competency, which is all about anticipating the problems that might evolve or occur in future time, right? So that skill, that competence is required. Value thinking as a competence is required. The ability to negotiate values and principles while addressing a problem, right? It's important because these are the fundamentals that I think which will encompass when we are addressing the sustainability goals, right? Strategic thinking is another one. Another important thing when it comes to government is the interpersonal competency or skill, right? The ability to facilitate collaboration between agencies, departments, and functions will become a critical, and it's always been a critical limit, right? There is no single consolidated strategy as we see from my perspective, and national policy or a single national policy that exists, right? It pretty much resides with a single government department or agency. There's much scope for these interrelated policies to be consolidated into a common roadmap as we move forward, right? But I would say from an immediate perspective, we should learn to learn and we should teach to learn, because things are changing very rapidly. I'll go over to you.
Thank you, Sriju, so much for highlighting the importance of really reskilling and upskilling, but also emphasizing the importance of the urgency. And I think DJ also mentioned about this. I mean, there's so much urgency looking at the current context, and highlighting the need for looking at beyond technical skills, a whole bunch of suite of soft skills, including skills on adaptive management and resiliency, and how do you deal with a different kind of shocks and a future that is very uncertain, and how do you plan for that, and how do you work with others? I think that's absolutely critical. If I can come to Vivek, now you from UNESCO's perspective, you did mention about 20 years of experience. If you can highlight from a climate actions point of view, what sort of partnerships do you think are important to really step up climate actions in the education space?
Well, thank you so much, and thank you to everyone for this very interesting discussion. And I think so many of the other panelists have really highlighted the need for intersectoral, multi-stakeholder partnerships. And from our perspective, that's absolutely critical. Because of the urgency, Akia, that you also mentioned, while we keep working in the formal school system at all levels, we really also need to now scale up what we are doing in non-formal and informal education. Media communication strategies have been highlighted, right? We need to, as I mentioned, we started back at COP26, really try to link up horizontally across government entities and ministries and so on and so forth. And we all know it's not very easy to do, to break these silos that we are working in almost all over the world. But it really needs to be done to accelerate action. But so we strongly believe in these multi-stakeholder partnerships. We are at the moment, UNESCO is really trying to move our advocacy from global level to really country level, and assisting countries in doing national action plans that really involve a very broad segment of the government and of ministries. But let me just highlight one thing that has already been mentioned by Shiju in his presentation, but that's young people. We will really need to capitalize on this amazing energy and commitment that young people have to this cause. And we see it almost every day. We see it every Friday. We saw it very much at COP26. And young people really, they really see also education as a tool for getting where they want to be in terms of having global citizens who really care for the planet and for humanity. And therefore there is a strong demand, and I think we really have to listen to it and accommodate it, for young people to be involved in kind of co-creating education for sustainable development and for climate change and climate action. All of us, including ADB, who are really working on with governments and education systems, I think we really need to capitalize on good practices that we already see from the NGO sector and civil society sector in really making this much more of a practice to really actively listen to young people. So let me end there, since I know time is short.
Thank you so much. And I think that's extremely powerful, the importance of co-creating solutions with young people so that they are prepared for a better global future. I'm going to open up the floor now for questions. I'm requesting any colleagues, if you have any specific question, please raise your hands. I don't see any immediate questions. I refuse to believe colleagues are shy over here. It could be a Friday afternoon thing. I can, of course, continue because I do have a few follow-up questions for each one of you. But meanwhile, then maybe I'll continue, and I'm sure colleagues will come forth with their question. If I can go back to you, Lerwin, as we heard, technology is rapidly changing, and in this context, learning programs also need to be much more agile, so that it fits for purpose, it can change and responsive to different changes. What are some of the good ways that we can ensure these programs have certain level of agility and are able to respond to the changes by having the right kind of tools and expertise required for this low carbon transition and resilient development?
When we look at things changing, we also should look at things that are not changing so much. So for example, when you look at STEM education, so mathematics, physics, chemistry, biology, all this very fundamental science. We study this fundamental science. I mean, of course, science is always evolved, but all the fundamental physics principles, the fundamental mathematics, and the fundamental biology, is always there that we need to learn. So when you have these basic knowledge, so I always encourage people to really do STEM. Should be compulsory for every tertiary education. You got to learn mathematics, you got to learn the basic physics, the chemistry and biology. And now with mathematics evolving in data science, I mean, once you have the mathematics, data science and computing, this is the next level. So the fundamental, we must have that fundamental knowledge, the scientific knowledge. Then look at what's changing. Then it's application of our knowledge. A lot of what we have seen is really to apply scientific principles and to develop innovation and to apply to, for example, if you know biology, then you know how to do fermentation, composting. And once you know the mathematics, you know how to do computing, you know how to apply and develop digital solutions. And how to, when you know physics, then all the physical sciences, physical technology, you can learn very quickly. Then so we need to be, of course, keep up to date what's happening. When we design our program, we always get experts in the cutting edge area to share the latest development in their field to our learners. And so our program, we have a fundamental core, the core is there, then we update with the latest knowledge, like nanotechnology. So I've been working on nanotechnology for 20 years. Now, I'm a physicist by training, but I have to keep update myself with all the cutting edge nanoelectronics, nanomedicine, nanomaterial, because that's the application of fundamental physics at the end and fundamental chemistry. So for me, learning these new knowledge, new technology is not difficult because I have all the fundamentals. So that's why, when we design our programs, we always engage our experts. And at the tertiary, at the higher education, just like I'm affiliated with a very small university, but very good engineering university in Thailand, I can learn so much, even for me to be known as a nanotechnology specialist. I learned so much from my colleagues in Thailand. And I used to work with all the top scientists in the United States involved in DARPA program, which involve in all those very, very cutting edge quantum computing, molecular computing. But then when I'm in Thailand in a small university, I can learn everything about what's going on in Industry 4.0, advanced robotics, blockchain, AI, everything. So when we develop our program, we always engage our faculties who are in the cutting edge field to share, to contribute their knowledge to our program. So that's how we keep updating ourselves. I think our practice, I'm very happy to share what we do with other colleagues. And what we've also learned that through this practice, now we have created a very strong partnership with Thai government. Now we are scaling up our program nationally. So that's really, it's an endorsement for our accomplishment. Now next year, we're going to scale to 8 universities across Thailand, the same program, STEAM program, right? And addressing BCG, but bio-circular green economy and adopting Industry 4.0 into what we call a smart circular economy. So that's what we're going to be focusing on and continue to improve our program, to improve the effectiveness of our program to drive change.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Actually talking about investing in the fundamentals of STEM, and if your foundation is very robust, then of course as application is something which you can continue to learn moving forward. I do see one of the hands from a colleague. Please come in and pose your question.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Per Borjegren, and it's first of all, thank you for a great webinar. I think this is extremely timely. It's something that I think it comes in the right moment in time. Maybe the question is for Vibeke. I'm working with the education sector projects, especially in the Pacific region, and I mean, you've made a strong case that climate change, sustainability, biodiversity loss is cross-cutting. It has to go into curriculum from early childhood to tertiary education, and in pretty much in all subjects. My question is really, curriculum reform and curriculum development often is a slow process in many of these countries. It takes time, it goes through various levels of clearances, and I don't think we have time for that. I mean, this is something we need to do rapidly. We need to be pragmatic. Do you have any examples or anyone where this is done in the public school systems? I mean, we see great examples where this is done on a private basis and in other contexts, but in traditional public school systems, how can we speed this process?
Vibeke, do you want to go ahead and respond to that, please?
Well, thank you, Pierre, for this very good question, and very pertinent question, I have to say. Yes, curricula is a slow process, absolutely, and we need to we who work on assisting countries with curriculum reform, we really need to be there when there is this opportune moment where countries are engaging with changing their curricula. And in some countries, maybe it's only going to happen 8-10 years from now, and then we have to find other ways to start strengthening what is going on climate change and education. And I think to a large extent also, you know, it's very much about introducing things sort of at the margin of the curriculum, sort of in the extracurricular is still important, though we are still aiming for having climate change education made mandatory. But the more we can do also in terms of providing teaching learning materials of all kinds that can feed directly into existing curricular topics. And what you also said that I really want to emphasize is it's not only something that needs to be taught in the science topics, geography, biology, and so on and so forth. It's really a topic to be mainstreamed very, very widely. You know, I love the A in your STEM platform, Leuven, because it's also about the arts. It's a capacity that arts and culture has to stimulate creativity and also connect with our environment and our planet, right? So that needs to happen. And the other thing that where we really think we need to focus a lot these days also is we have to move beyond teaching the knowledge and even the skills to really making sure that we generate that agency or behavior change that we want to see in young people and all of us, basically. So the whole social and emotional learning dimension, which is happening in education systems around the world, but to varying degree, needs to be really strengthened and really sort of put at the forefront. So we really start closing that gap between knowing, but also behaving and acting for the benefit of the climate. But you're right, curriculum change doesn't do it alone. I think we need to work on the many different streams of the education system, from to teacher training and to what can be introduced without changing the curriculum at the school level. And as you know very well, schools are so education systems in the world are so different. In some countries it's easier than others. Sometimes what is happening is really very centrally controlled. In other places, there is space for going to the local level and start getting things done there. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vivek. Any other hands? I don't see any specific question. While I wait for questions, let me go to Shiju with one last question for you from my side, at least. I mean, TCS is, of course, a global leader in IT. How do you make sure your own staff continue to learn in their work?
Yeah. So Argo, so what we do is, so before I get into how do we address it, right? There's a need for us to, I did speak about it a little earlier, that there's a need for us to address the skills shortages and the lack of preparation of the workforce. What I mean by that is, we are increasingly seeing that the graduates hired, I'm just speaking about the graduates because, people after getting certain experience, there is a level of competency that they anyway develop over a period of time. But we increasingly see that the graduates hired have not been adequately prepared by their pre-hire education system or training, right? When we hire them. Now, in most cases, graduates hiring required additional person training efforts for us to get them to be able to perform and deliver the tasks that they are expected to deliver. Therefore, on-the-job training will be the critical form of skill development for a long time and to continue to be that way. Education and training institutions also need to prepare graduates better when they come in, into entry-level positions, in our view, as we see it. See, there is a report that I had read, from ADB actually, which suggests that, there will be about 14.2 million person training efforts that will be required to meet the skill gap and the skill required by the IT BPO industry that I represent in the next decade or so. That's massive, right? So in today, the new normal offices that we have moved into some what we call in TCS as SBWS, which is called secured borderless workspace. That's how we call it. So in that, what we do is we have come up with online training programs. There are various platforms that we can leverage, our employees can leverage from. We do have platforms which is named as iWall, Fresco Play, Nomi, and so on and so forth, everything, but mostly internal PCS. We also, leverage on the on Udemy or LinkedIn learning programs or Globe Smart and so on and so forth, among many others. Now, these platforms are also coupled with faculty-led programs in areas such as development of first-time managers, transformation of mid-level managers, also on training in growth and transformation leaders, coaching and finding your career and purpose, which is a program that we run for mid-level managers. Design thinking and deep skilling is a structured program that we have for our employees. So in the past year, we have seen that, while it has been challenging, but we have seen it to be very productive. The work from home that we've had and the online platform adaptability that we embarked on, we saw it extremely productive for TCS, right? So I can give you quickly, because in the interest of time, some quick numbers. So in the last 1 year, among our employees in TCS in Philippines, we've got about 5,000 plus people. We have 260,000 learning hours that was clocked by our employees. 3,000 plus course contented courses were completed. 1,800 plus course content was created by our experts and behavioral experts and IT experts. 380 odd virtual sessions, 1,200 plus capability building courses that was done. So overall, people have embraced the change. They have embraced the new way of working. They've embraced the new normal. And that's where I earlier mentioned about learn to learn. It's important because we need to shift quickly. And we need to continue to impart these trainings and curriculum onto our people. But most importantly, if something that I would like to change, and I like the way it was mentioned about, the need to change the curriculum system, right? Because what we see is there's a gap in terms of who are, fresh people graduating and freshly joining us. There's a gap between what is required by them and which as compared to what they possess. And that's where the GoIT program, Ignite My Future, that we've launched in Philippines, and even Sustainathon is probably going to address some of these. So it's a continuous process, I would say. And there are various means and means that we address this, not only for TCS, but these are something which is available for our customers outside of TCS as well.
Thank you so much for sharing the work that TCS is leading on the job training and the importance of continuous learning and creating a system where employees are able to reskill and upskill as they move along. Is there any other questions from colleagues and participants? I do not see any hands being raised. If so, please feel free to come in. Meanwhile, sorry, anybody here?
Argo, I wonder if I can jump in with.
Sure, please, Shanti. Yes.
I don't know if any of the panelists would like to talk about either one thorny challenge or obstacle that we should really focus on overcoming in order to get traction on this topic, or how do you see some kind of opportunity that's presenting itself in the current times, either because of the reimagining that we are being forced to do because of COVID. So what's the sort of current opportunity that we can really leverage to to speed up the process of transition or gain momentum? So either of these two, if anybody would like to share their thoughts.
Who wants to start?
Maybe I could.
Please go ahead.
Actually, COVID has helped. I mean, pros and cons, I think we all know. COVID, in a way, how we see how much we can scale, how much we could actually do a lot more now. The things that we imagine we couldn't do, Like in the past, we focus on physical training because we get workshops, get everyone meet together and run events. And there's a lot of also cost involved, right? You got to do the catering, you got to do all that stuff that involve costing, traveling. Now we can save all the travel costs and no more catering, and we can run everything digital. So that's an opportunity for us to scale, and now I can be very confident that we can, when the Ministry of Science and Education wanted us to scale to 8 universities. In the past we go, this is really hard, but now we think this is really no problem, because we already try the pilot nationally. Now we can totally scale. So that's really an opportunity for us to move forward thanks to COVID. And challenges, of course, when we did our online training, sometimes the engagement, for example, we ran a 5 months pilot program for STEM, for strategic communication. We had 40 people selected by different government agencies, National Innovation Agency and Regional Science Park. In the beginning, everyone was there, but then you can see people kind of got busy. And so because 5 months is a long time, and we want people to come in every Sunday to join our course, it's really hard. And because we cover a range from 16 years old, high school students, to 50 years old, to social entrepreneurs. So we have this wide range of age group, different disciplines from all over Thailand, from Chiang Mai, North, Chiang Rai, South Thailand to Songkhla area. It's really challenging to get that engagement secure for such a long time. So that's our challenge. How do we overcome that? But at the end, it's something you can't do. You can't bring everyone back and every Sunday to do what we're trying to do. So now moving forward next year, we have to change our program format by decentralizing our training. So we're going to start our train-the-trainer program. So every university, we pick 2 trainers from each university, and we train them every month, update their skills. And then we launch our program on technology innovation. So every semester, there's university so-called final year project. They will work on their research. So we will repeat our 2018 success story, is to get these students to submit their innovation, and we train those leading engineers and scientists, and bring in design students and business school students to work with them to help them commercialize their idea and their accomplishment. So this is what we're going to do: decentralize, train the trainers, so that 2022, from our pilot, learn our lesson, and move forward. So hope that helps.
Thank you, Lervin. If I can just ask the same question very briefly, DJ, do you see any challenge or opportunities in the private sector? Very, very briefly.
Yeah, thank you for the great question. In Korea, actually, private sector and even the local government is very serious about the green transition, because they should change their business portfolio. They should change their the manpower, and also they should change their industry, their portfolio as well. And all of this one happens all of the sudden. So they are not ready for this transition yet. So for example, the private sectors want to have the new business model with the new technology, new products, and new services. But the issue is they don't have many people to develop this new solution by themselves. It's a very serious issue. So for example, in Korea, so we depend on the fossil fuel-based industry, and then the government and also the ESG investment and such global market, to push the companies to change their business portfolio, but they don't have the people. They don't have enough manpower to design and develop the new content, new solution by themselves. And that's why they are very urgent to make agreements with the universities. Why? Before, when the graduate students that come in their company, they need some training period to train them to the business, but they want to shorten the period. So it is a very serious right now. It's a very big challenge. But the one good thing is the central government right now they're putting really a lot of investment in the human capital and also to support the private sector to transition their business portfolio. So they have the many opportunities to grab subsidy and the support from central government. So right now they are very, very busy to the search opportunity to have this to grab this transition the era. And so right now, okay, this is what I want to say. Yeah.
Thank you so much, DJ. So in interest of time, this brings us to the close of the session. I think I found the coming not from an education side, but from a climate side, I found the discussion to be extremely interesting. And for me, there are three key things which kind of emerged. One is we talked a lot about, given the complexity of the problem and the urgency in which we need solutions, there are actions that are needed across at all levels. We talked about the importance of curriculum, formal and informal curriculum. We talked about importance of skills and TVET, and we talked about the importance of teachers and building their capacity, and the importance of partnering between universities and private sector, etc. So that is extremely important to look at all levels of interventions. We also secondly talked about approaches. And we heard about the importance of looking at holistic solutions beyond just the focus on technology, but looking at policy interventions, institutional reforms, incentive structures. We heard about importance of multidisciplinary solutions if you really want to crack this climate problem. Importance of peer-to-peer learning is absolutely critical. Importance of co-creating solutions specifically with the younger generation is absolutely important if you want to scale up climate action. So the approaches is equally important. And the third thing which we learn is about, in this context of what we think is new normal now, but it might change again tomorrow because something other might come up, we do have to look at importance of continually changing, reskilling and upskilling, of professionals. We're looking at giving importance not just to technical skills, but also to softer skills of managing relationships or negotiating deals, about looking at much more adaptive management principles. How do you keep on changing things in your work? We also heard about the importance of investing in foundations like STEM, etc., because it helps you in applications. But importantly, a lot of colleagues talked about looking at beyond technical education to look at art and design thinking, because that is absolutely critical for problem-solving point of view. So for me, these three approaches of looking at all the scales, looking at a different kind of approach and a new normal where we have to continuously reskill and upskill as we move along. So this has been extremely important and exciting for me. With that, I'm going to hand over to Shanti Jagannathan, who is a principal education specialist at ADB, for delivering the closing remarks. Over to you, Shanti.
Thank you, Argo. And many thanks to all the panelists. It's been a really rich discussion, and you've given us a lot of food for thought. And thank you, Argo. Like, you really picked up on many of the same things that I wanted to say, but let me sort of rephrase maybe some of it in the context of education and training. So like you, I also want to talk about three things that I think are takeaways for education education teams. First is that education for climate change needs to be transformational and needs to be embedded at all levels of education, from K-12 to TVET to tertiary. And we need to think about, we need to think more creatively on how to do this on a faster pace, and not to rely on traditional methods of curriculum kind of in an incremental way, but more on a transformational way, and how we can strengthen the capacity of education systems to embrace these new ways of learning. And there was also discussion around learning to learn and so on, and how we can also create resilience in education systems. And we need to think about how the green transition can also give rise to more jobs, like as per ADB estimates. Investing in these efforts will actually create 65 million new low carbon jobs by 2030. So this is a good time to think about how we can advance on these matters. So the second takeaway is the intersection of sustainability and digitalization. So the digitalization agenda has been like on the cards for some time. It's giving rise to far-reaching changes in the workforce, whether it's smart grids or renewable energy, smart transportation or smart cities. There's a lot of work to be done to assess the skills needed and how we can facilitate this whole digital transformation in a sort of effective way. And our work, ADB's work on the fourth industrial revolution, and our work with LinkedIn, revealing that much more efforts are needed to strengthen digital skills. And in fact, basic digital skills have become the foundation, and increasingly employers are asking for much more of the middle and advanced digital skills. The third takeaway is that education systems have to give more emphasis on, like you mentioned, Argo, on critical thinking and problem solving skills, whether it's related to design thinking or creating thinking mindset, learning to learn, and also these are being addressed, whether it's in terms of coding or creativity skills are becoming far more important, and the nature of interdisciplinary education. And entrepreneurship. Interdisciplinary is also sitting very well with ADB's own strategy 2030, which is calling for much more work on intersectorality of development and what we can deliver as development impact to our partner countries. So many thanks again to all our panelists. I hope this is only the start of our conversation and we can continue this dialogue and also convergent action as we go forward. Many thanks. Back to you, Argo.
Thank you so much, Shanti. And with that, we'll come to an end of this session. Thanks a lot to all the panelists and all participants, and very specifically a big thanks to education sector colleagues, Shanti and other colleagues for leading this webinar. And as Shanti mentioned, hopefully this is a beginning of a big discussion that will continue and lead to actions. And for me, the main important point is, as the end of the Resilience Learning Month, education is a key tool for strengthening resilience. If we don't have education, then we are just not prepared for the future that lies in front of us. So with that, thank you all of you for joining, and have a good weekend ahead.
Thank you, Argo.
Thank
you,
you,
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.